For another one of my top 10 lists, and this is going under the title of the best hard rock albums. I'm using that as a blanket term because when you see my list, you're probably going to think that some of this is glam metal or some is progressive rock. I have other genres like alternative and new metal, but I feel that these bands are almost metal bands, but they're not like that heavy and they're more accessible to the casual listener. So I have them here. I have a lot of older bands on here, some newer ones. It's a nice mix. Let me not waste any more time and get right into it. Coming in at number 10 is Sundowners by The Answer. They are a Northern Irish rock band that is bringing back a classic rock sound. I found this band when I saw their debut album in a record store. I picked it up by chance. I would compare this band to some other bands that are out right now, like Greta Van Fleet and Dirty Honey. One of those two bands will actually be on this list later. It was a pretty good hard rock album. They reminded me of the Black Crowes. They play blues rock, which can get a little hard at times. The guitars are distorted and they have energetic songs. I like the song Want You to Love Me with the distorted bass and guitar sound. Other songs like No Salvation, it sounds like the Rolling Stones. Kind of also reminded me of like those Cinderella albums from the 90s when they got bluesy. If you like that type of music, check it out. Coming in at number 9 is the Winery Dogs with 3. This supergroup comprises Richie Kotzen, Mike Portnoy, and Billy Sheehan. It's the type of music that has lots of virtuoso playing. If you like that and like a lot of that guitar wankery, I think you can get into this band. Richie Kotzen has vocals and he sounds a lot like Chris Cornell, so if you're a fan of Soundgarden, I think you would appreciate this. I thought it was pretty good. The songs have a lot of technicality, but they're also pretty catchy. I like some of the songs on the second half of the album best, such as Gaslight and The Red Wine. There are also really great songs like Stars and the opening track Xanadu. So it's a pretty good album. Coming in at number 8 is Babylon by the Lynch Mob. This was released not too long ago in October. The album is filled with hard rockers. The band still sounds the same as I remember. I haven't listened to all the albums, but I listened to the first few of them and they haven't really changed their sound. The new vocalist sounds like he fits the band well. He has that particular style captured in the late 80s and early 90s glam metal and or sleaze rock type of sound. George Lynch still sounds great. I think the guitar solos are really good in this album. The album has a few melodic tracks such as Time After Time. They also get a little funky with the song Caught Up. The song titled I'm Ready has a very Van Halen-esque type of sound. I like the title track to close the album, which is an 8-minute epic with Middle Eastern sounding guitar riffs. Kind of evoke the Rainbow Stargazer type of feel, but if you like that stuff, check out this album. Coming in at number 7 is Stained with Confessions of the Fallen. You're probably thinking that Stained is a new metal band and it's not hard rock, but I'm putting them here because they do have a lot of radio-friendly songs and I wanted to include them somehow, so I'm putting them on this list. It's the first album in about 12 years. I thought it was a great comeback album. Some of the songs are very heavy, such as the single Lowest in Me. That's more reminiscent of their earlier albums, but they had a few of their typical sounding ballads with very emotional lyrics, such as the single Here and Now. The rest of the songs are really good. I like Cycle of Hurting. I'd probably put that in my top 10 Stained songs of all time. I think the best songs were the singles, but the deeper cuts are not too bad, and for that reason, I have it right here on my list. At number 6 is Dirty Honey with Can't Find the Brakes. The album came out not too long ago at the beginning of November. They're one of those classic rock revival bands. They can probably be compared to Greta Van Fleet. But I think this band is a lot better than them. I hear a lot of influence from like Aerosmith and the Black Crowes. Some songs are bluesy hard rock songs. For example, the opening track, Don't Put Out the Fire, reminds me of Cinderella in their Heartbreak Station album. Then the other songs sound more like Aerosmith from the 70s. So for example, the song Won't Take Me Alive. Then they also have some ballads. I like them a lot. So the song Coming Home, the Ballad of Shire, that reminded me of Going to California from Led Zeppelin, but it sounded like an original song. There was another ballad I liked called You Make It All Right that has kind of a country feel. I like that one, and they closed the album with Rebel Sun, which is a hard rocker in the vein of some classic Rolling Stones. Overall, killer album, that's why I have it ranked right here. And number 5 is Chaos in Color by URI Heap. This is their 25th studio album. The band is one of the original hard rock and heavy metal bands. They've been around for a long time, like about as long as Black Sabbath. Most people know them from their classic albums like Demons and Wizards, but they're still going strong, and they released a pretty good album in 2023. Came out at the beginning of the year. I think it has held up very well. I think I like some of the longer progressive songs. So, for example, Age of Changes has some great keyboard sounds, and I like the longer songs on the second half of the album, like You'll Never Be Alone and Freedom to Be Free. Those ones are more on the progressive side. But if you like bands like Deep Purple, I think that's a good comparison. Really good album, and it has held up very well. And number 4 is Mammoth WVH with Mammoth II. So when the first album came out 2 years ago, a lot of people expected Wolfgang Van Halen to continue the legacy of his father by forming a band that plays music that sounds like old Van Halen. But Wolfgang did his own thing. It's hard rock or even alternative rock. It's leaning towards grunge, but I have it here. It's on their hard rock list because it's a really good album. I feel it's better than the first one. The opening track, Right, is kind of heavy, but then the album gets melodic with songs like Another Celebration at the End of the World and Miles Above Me, the latter of which has a distinct Alice in Chains feel. I've been listening to the song I'm Alright a lot. That one had more of a 70s hard rock vibe. There's a ballad called Waiting, and some more alternative rock with the final song, Better Than You. Overall, very solid album. It got mixed reactions, but I've been going back to it often. And number 3 is going to be something different on Green Lung with this Heathen Land. So I wasn't sure where to place this album. I knew it had to appear on one of my lists. They're listed as stoner rock or doom metal, but I feel they sounded more like 70s rock. They sound a lot like the band Ghost, and I haven't heard their other albums, but I'm going off my impression of this album. They're from London. They're signed to Nuclear Blast Records. They're new on the scene. They've been active since 2017. This is their 3rd album, and it's very good. I didn't do a full review, but I probably should have. The first track after the prologue is called The Forest Church. Has some heavy, like Black Sabbath style guitar riffs accompanied by haunting keyboards, and the vocals, again, like I mentioned, reminded me of Ghost, like that, like Papa Emeritus style of singing. But one of my favorite tracks was the clip I played called Maxine, the Witch Queen. And that one reminds me of like Square Hammer by Ghost. It's a really great song. It's a solid album. I don't think Stoner Doom is a good label because they don't sound like the bands that I know, Bongzilla, Dope Smoker, or Sleep. They're different. So for that reason, I have them here. Coming in at number 2 is Winger with 7. I actually wasn't expecting to like this album at first. I used to listen to their first 2 albums in the late 80s, but then I had forgotten about them. I was expecting a very bland, like hair metal album, but I was surprised that this band has aged very well. They still have that hair metal or glam metal sound, but it sounds a lot more mature. There are elements of hard rock, classic rock, some progressive rock. Kip Winger still sounds as good as he did in the 80s. I've been listening to Proud Desperado a lot and Tears of Blood. There are some straightforward melodic metal with Resurrect Me. Voodoo Fire has some cool bass guitar work. They use a talk box on the song It's Okay. That reminded me of Bon Jovi's Living on Prayer. And the final song, It All Comes Back Around, was a 7-minute arena rocker. Overall, this was surprisingly very good. I wasn't expecting this to rank that high. At number 1 is Extreme with 6. This is their 6th album. I was anticipating this album because they were one of my favorite bands from the late 80s, early 90s. It was a solid album. First 3 songs of the album were Rebel, then Rise, and Banshee. And those had a typical hard rock sound that they were known for. Then the songs after that, they were kind of in different styles. A lot of fans didn't like that part of the album. It was very polarizing. I got a lot of negative comments on my video, but some fans loved it. I thought it was great, and just there were a lot of different opinions on this album. But I think it's one of the best albums of the year. I had it as my number 1 for my mid-year top 10. But the rest of the album consisted of a few ballads like Other Side of Rainbow, Small Town Beautiful, and Hurricane. Then there's some weirder stuff, like The Mask has some baritone vocals. Everyone thought it was Nuno singing. I'm still not sure who sings. Then there's more experimental stuff like the industrial sounding X Out, and the Calypso music inspired Beautiful Girls. Overall, just a great album from a classic band. So that is all for now. Let me know some of your favorite hard rock albums in the comments section. If you're interested, here are some of the full reviews. They're going to be right around there. And please like this video. Helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe if you have not already. And please comment. I do rock and metal reviews, rankings, and more. I'll see you in the next video.